All right, everybody, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. And I have brother David on with us today. Today's topic is, do blacks in the UK support the ADOS movement? And we were just having a great build offline, and I wish we were live so everyone could hear what we're speaking of. But basically, it's this idea. Let me kind of break it down. You know, there are a lot of Pan-Africans for some weird reason, for some odd reason, who are anti-ADOS movement. And it just doesn't make sense why you would disagree with descendants of slaves here in America who have been the foundation of America, wanting their own protected status so they could get what's due to them. And we were building on that, and, you know, we were talking about the UK, but David, go ahead and, you know, tell everybody who you are and where you're from. And
okay, well, what's up, everybody? I'm David. I'm from out here in the UK, from London originally. Shout out to North London. I've recently, just like many of us, you know, over the past years and throughout my life, you know, watched what's happened to us as black people, and as a younger black person, developed and, you know, found myself in a position where I'm now getting to have different conversations and see different discussions. What myself and I'm terribly sorry, man. What's your question?
No. Dynasty Mirror. Search for Dynasty Mirror. Yeah, no problem.
Well, what myself and Dynasty was discussing just before we came on was really from a Pan-Africanist, you know, mindset. How can Pan-Africanists be against this movement? How can people who are supposed to most recognize each black community everywhere and what we've all been through, how can we be that vehemently against an ADOS movement? Because something which you and other people have said, which is very true, which I think is a very big truth that we don't want to talk about, is that Pan-Africanism has been one-sided.
Thank you.
It has been. We have to be honest, right? Because the sad thing is yes, Africa lacks a lot. My family's from Ghana. Africa lacks a lot in certain resources, not resources, infrastructure. It lacks a lot in certain things, but it doesn't take much. It doesn't take anything for people to get together and really, after all this time, recognize that we have not legally backed up what we say. Pan-Africanism is great. Unfortunately, the downside is that it can only be great if both sides are doing their bit. We've all benefited from Pan-Africanist thinkers like Dr. John Henrik Clarke and Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. But when Dr. John Henrik Clarke back in the day helped Sheikh Anta Diop get his book on Egypt translated into English back at a time when there was nobody translating.
Repeat that too. Who helped Sheikh Diop get his book translated to English?
Dr. John Henrik Clarke.
I didn't know that. Dang.
Yeah. And a lot of the scholars back in those days, you know, the real titans of what we do, a lot of them were based in America. Some were based in Europe. Some were based in Africa. But when everybody was working together, we had things that worked. And unfortunately, it hasn't been reciprocal. So I can't really blame African Americans, ADOS community. I can't really blame them for being questionable about, well, what is Africa going to offer me? What is Pan-Africanism going to offer me? As blacks from the African continent, I think we also need to be very, very careful in the following years as to how we've approached being in the diaspora. In the UK, it's different because the majority of us here are the grandchildren of immigrants, which mostly came from 1948. And they're called the Windrush generation because the Windrush boat was the boat that brought the Caribbean immigrants from Jamaica to the UK in 1948. So we a lot of our parents are immigrants. So we some of us have been here for a while. A lot of Africans came in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, etc., etc. But none of us, like nobody can, you know, look outwards and say that what you guys are striving for isn't owed to you. I mean, if it wasn't owed to you, then, you know, what was Martin Luther King and all of them lot, you know, fighting for? You know, you guys have been there suffering.
Let me ask you this. So the argument is, and I was having it, and I didn't have the opportunity to record it, After I sat down with Seun for like an hour, Seun Kuti, and was able to record our bill. But then after that, we had like another 15-minute discussion. And so the argument was that since globally Black people have been oppressed, that if you're Black in America, no matter which generation, where you come from, you deserve the same reparations as descendants of slaves whose lineage.
I don't agree. But here's what I think, right? I think the ADOS movement, I think African-American descendants of slaves deserve the reparations that the US government is going to give to the descendants of that tragedy. I don't think African immigrants moving into Africa recently no. But does, the USA, the Catholic Church, Britain, France, do all of these colonial powers owe Africa something for the damage it did? Of course, but that's a separate thing. That's not the same as ADOS. When the ADOS people are coming out with their campaign to get what's right for them, we should back that. The same way we all backed the anti-apartheid struggle. The same way we all back people like Julius Malema.
In fact, stop the show. Here we go. Anti-apartheid struggle. Black Americans were very vocal in that.
Exactly.
But we didn't ask for nothing.
Exactly. And in that case, we saw back in the days, we saw a huge amount of support generated and a huge amount of exposure generated from the works of African Americans. You see, when you guys have that, and then when you talk about when you went to Ghana and you had to pay the same as the white people to go pay Coast Castle, do you know how angry that made me? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I cannot understand what in the life is in the mind of most of our leaders. And unfortunately, one thing which I think doesn't get conveyed a lot in the conversation is that in America, we now, the new voices of Black media, are really discussing how the baby boomer generation in certain ways failed. And I feel that Africans of that same generation are failing as well. I think they're kind of one and the same. I think that generation has a little bit of that problem. And now that we get older, when you see, things like the J-Lo at the Motown thing, and you see certain old heads saying certain things, and I'm like, what is wrong with you old people? Like, why are you doing this? But then when I look at how they treated you in Ghana, I'm like, okay, you old lot love to just mess this up. Like, you old lot need to, like, get out of positions of power. Like, and that's one thing that I have hopeful for Africa. It has a very young population. And I hope that these young people can take up a new stance, because these older Africans have made a real failure of this.
Now, let me ask you this. Are there now, from my understanding, like a lot of the Blacks from the UK, like I would say descendants of slavery in the UK, came from America and went to the UK, and then some came from Africa. Does the Black immigrant population outnumber them now, or how's that?
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, basically, the majority of people in the UK who are Black that can call themselves descendants of slavery are the Caribbean community. So, particularly in the UK, because Britain colonized certain islands in the Caribbean, you get a lot of Jamaicans, for example, right? Places like Birmingham in England, that is little Jamaica. That is Jamaica and a half right there, right? So a lot of the first Caribbean generation, they came in like the 40s, as well as some Africans as well in the early 50s, and they've been coming. But what's different is that we've always had a continuous run of new African immigrants coming into the UK. So, for example, in the 80s and 90s, I know there were a lot of Ugandans that came to the UK. In the 80s and 90s, I know a lot of Nigerians also came. In the early 2000s, a lot of Somalians came. But in the UK, whenever we do have the discussion about reparations and things like that, you tend to just not see like Black people starting to, it just tends to be, everyone just tends to, well, not everyone, but a lot of people just kind of like, yeah, we support that. I'm Ghanaian. I know I will never get a reparations check that is destined for a Jamaican person. But
exactly. But for some reason, people want a reparations check that's for ADOS.
No, it's wrong. No, and I'm sorry, but for anyone that wants to say that, in particular Africans, as a first-generation African, I can say that that's disingenuous. It's very disingenuous, because the sad reality is that if you actually look at the law, let's look at the number of African immigrants before the 1960s, and then say how much we're deserved. Because at the end of the day, it was African Americans.
You made a great point. You just made a great point.
Yeah, I mean, they made the progressive steps. So I hate to say it, but to my African brothers and sisters, firm up, handle your business, and stop acting needy. I would say, look at the reparation. If an African immigrant wants a reparations check, just, no, you don't need one. You have Africa. Like, let's, if
so repeat that again. And this is the point I was trying to make, was you guys have a land of your own. We don't.
Exactly. Africans, if you want a reparations check, all right, fine. Just buy a one-way ticket to Ghana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, South Africa, wherever, and let's set up shop. We've got to do better at using the continent to our advantage. And I think that now the future discussion is going to see, in my opinion, first-generation Africans in America, and particularly Black Brits, who tend to be the sons or grandchildren of immigrants. I think a lot of the weight is going to now come to us to not look for a reparations check in the USA or in the UK that's destined for our Jamaican or African-American brothers and sisters, but how can we finesse and parlay our way back to Africa, buy land, and keep that. I just want to see us go home and really, let's beat the Chinese at their own game. Let's beat the Indians too. Let's do something. Africans, you do not need to go seek a reparations check. We need to go home and build Africa strong. Things like the tourism industry. It's madness. How is it that you can have so many Black people based in America and in the UK, but the tourism industry in Ghana is not tailored perfectly to Black Americans or Black Brits? It doesn't make sense. We are being lazy, in my humble opinion.
So why aren't, and I get pushback from this all the time. Help me out there. Now, you're first generation or second generation?
Yeah. First. My mom's from Ghana and my dad's from Ghana.
Okay. Why aren't they returning and helping build the continent?
Because one reason, actually, I think Africans are often quite taught by their parents who left that there is no hope in Africa.
Repeat that again. I need you to repeat that again.
I think a lot of Africans, not everyone, but a lot of Africans are kind of taught that there's no hope back home. Like, a lot of people, they come, they do a better life, but if you suggest to your mom or dad, oh, I want to go back to Africa, a lot of parents will say, oh, okay, we have a house, that's cool. But a lot of African parents as well will laugh at you and just be like, go home for what? Like, the place is finished. We can't fix it. I've even heard, some people say, oh, well, the Chinese will be done, by the time you get there. And I'm like, nah, like, we have to start being comfortable with the ability to survive the crap conditions of struggling as immigrants in the UK, France, Italy, America, Canada. We have to, at some point, start saying, look, we have to stay. I would love to see Ghana, for example, and this is going to sound ridiculous, and it is hard. I would love to see Ghana ask its citizens, okay, do you have to go anywhere? What can we do here? How do we keep people on the continent? Because we suffer from a brain drain, but we don't want to let other wise, smart, suffering people return home. How does that make sense? We suffer from a brain drain, but we don't want to let people who are treated like dirt across the world come home, who left our shores as captives.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it's so much red tape, and I'm shocked that a lot of people didn't know about, the descendants of the slaves having to pay to go to the same slave castles that their ancestors were shipped out of.
Yeah, that was a shock to me. That was a real shock. And I can genuinely say, I find it to be a real embarrassment. In my personal opinion, I think it's a true embarrassment that we that we're doing that. Like, that's embarrassing. Like, how can you have a monument dedicated to something, and the only people on earth descended from that tragedy, which you talk about every day, have to pay the same?
Right.
I mean, if they need to generate money, I get it, but give a reduced rate. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on Ghana's year of return, since you're first immigrant?
It sounds good. It looks good. I think that it's been presented very well, but unfortunately, for me, if you're going to do year of return, but we're not going to see, for example, African Americans no longer need a visa to travel to Ghana. African Americans don't need to pay for certain, slave memorials and things like that in Africa. African Americans have even something like a quick pass with the red tape of getting a visa and all them types of things. If you don't have anything tangible alongside it, then it's a big ceremony. And ceremonies are great, but they're not going to save us.
Sad. And this is the issue, I think, with Pan-Africanism. They are more concerned with symbolism than tangibles.
Absolutely. Ceremonies will not save us. I cannot eat a ceremony, and we cannot travel between countries based on ceremony. You know, I look at Israel, and we have to be honest, in a lot shorter a time, let's just take that thing in Israel, right to return, right?
Right.
How much do you think the Israeli government has benefited from being able to create somewhere for they people to come to, their best and their brightest and what have you, and it's worked out great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and I'm lost. Like, if you're gonna do year of return, but you're not gonna put legislative backing behind, people returning to the continent, just like that sister from that went to the Gambia, who had to speak to their government about being recognized as an African. That, to me, is disgraceful. That we have allowed our brothers and sisters globally, and we don't even legally recognize that. You see, that's my problem, in the sense that Africa, okay, we may not have enough money to build a giant fucking Moses boat and ship everybody round and all that, but we can put some legislation behind what we say. And unfortunately, African elites are greedy and no different than their European counterparts, and they've just dropped the ball on this. They're not gonna do anything tangible, so it's not gonna take up anything. It's not gonna help. And Ghana's reputation in the diaspora is plummeting.
What do you mean plummeting? How?
I think Ghanaians especially Ghanaians abroad, are like, the reputation is starting to go sour. Ghana's always been seen as like the Pan-African homeland, but when you're the Pan-African homeland,
but the thing is, like the first time I went to Ghana, I said to myself, how did Ghana? I remember when I called. See, I was under the impression that I could just show up to Ghana, get a visa on arrival, and be good. But I remember when I saw that I had to pay for a visa, send my passport in and all this stuff in, I'm like, okay, that was a red flag for me. And then just going on and the experiences that a lot of the Ghanaian, the diaspora who's relocated to Ghana, their experiences, I was like, this isn't adding up.
Yep. And the sad thing is that I've always, especially when I was younger, I would hear a lot about Rastas moving to either Ethiopia or Ghana. I would hear a lot about African Americans choosing to relocate to Ghana.
Right.
So Ghana is not naive to people wanting to return there specifically. And I just don't get why it is that it can't, like, what is, for me, I guess that's my biggest thing with Ghana. And I think that's really what's harming the reputation, which is that even as Pan-Africanists, we can't really explain what the Ghanaian government's mode of thinking is. If it was about money, then I'd love for Pan-Africanists around the world to be discussing it and saying, well, how can we do this in a way which is going to be financially feasible for a nation that's struggling to keep the lights on? But unfortunately, it's just a bunch of excuses from the Ghanaian government, and I don't get why. I really don't understand why. It's to me, it's the biggest. It's crazy. It's crazy, man, for real.
Shout out to everybody who's super chatting. Please make sure you hit that like button as well. Hit that like button. All right, we have 324 people watching, only 79 likes. Hit that like button. David, now, and I got shade thrown at me and called, Dynasty, you don't understand, our struggle on the continent until you live there 7 years. You're just a glorified tourist.
Hey.
Okay. So why? Because I keep hearing the leaders. African elites is the reason why Africa's messed up, which, okay, I understand. But why, in your honest opinion, why isn't the diaspora confronting these issues? And I could be wrong. They probably can be. They probably are. But I just,
Actually, I think.
And I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I think we're in the middle of it. I think that, for example, one thing that doesn't help is, well, it's not that it doesn't help, but one thing that's a factor of the reality is that, unfortunately, when you have huge numbers of people who leave Ghana and shed their identity quick as they can, and then on top of that, you've got Black people from all types of backgrounds, regardless of where their family originate from, that are straight cooning. Little things like that, I feel like it's kind of like if I have 100 people on my team, but only 10 people are awake. It's like, okay, I have a lot of people here, and we are a big diaspora community outside of Africa, but we've not been able to organize ourselves into the most effective group. I, for example, would love to see, hopefully the next maybe 5 to 10 years, I would love to see a delegation of people from first generation Africans in America, African Americans, Caribbeans, and even Black Europeans go as a solid group to one solid country, which could actually sit down and say, look, we represent 10,000 Africans outside of this continent. You know full well the suffering that we take globally as a people. You know that we got, that some of our brothers.
I'm going to say this. Continue to talk. My son is outside. I'm going to go grab him real quick, but give me like a minute and 20 seconds. But go ahead and continue to talk. Everyone, thank you for super chat. Give me a minute and 20 seconds.
You go. All right, here's the pressure moment. Oh, yeah. So I would love personally to see that delegation go to the Ghanaian government, to the Nigerian government, to this. I think, in all honesty, and someone remember to say this when Homeboy gets back, that South Africa might, in my opinion, might hold the potential. South Africa might be a potential. I don't care what nation it is, essentially, though. I would love to see the organized efforts of a Pan-African group that can represent a larger block of people, just to get the attention of the government of Africa and say, look, which one of you nations is going to open the door? And I think that the record of Black people's strength across the world is testament that, all right, we may look and do certain things different in different countries, but we all know we've been through it. So when we come back, yeah, it's going to be tough. Yes, it's not going to be like the West or other countries than that. But whether we deserve it or not should be completely unquestioned. And the fact that we, as African people on the continent, lose our best and brightest to the UK, USA, Canada, Russia, all this other type of stuff, but we won't allow our best and brightest to return. It's a giant, it's a giant hole. And unfortunately, it starts to lend credence to people who do leave the continent and tell their kids, well, there's no hope. Hence, it kind of, in a way, in my mind, it kind of like just goes in a big old circle. I mean, I think that the diaspora has to really, and in particular, in my opinion, first generation Africans across the world have to really take a very strong position. I think when you did a video recently saying, what is the future of Pan-Africanism?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. I just got back.
There you go. I think the future of Pan-Africanism is going to be really based on what the first generation in particular is going to be willing to lead. I'm quite happy actually in the USA. I've heard that there's like African lobbies now, like groups of African first generations that are like sending things to Africa or trying to push the government on certain policies. Is that true?
I think so. I'm pretty sure there are. In fact, I know for a fact there's probably always been some type of lobby here here in America of African immigrants, but you know, I don't know what their end game is, because the thing is, it just seems like, is it just a better position under the corrupt government, or are they really trying to make change? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's
the thing.
But organizing power like that, I think, is really where the future of it is. Not maybe with the US government, but maybe, you know, how do we get that delegation of people? You know, because like you said it yourself, actually, we've been having conferences forever.
Yeah, it's just the damn 20s. Pan-African conference here and there. Yeah.
We know what the deal is. We need to have these conferences with 10 heads of state in the room.
Yeah.
Or with 5 heads of tourism or whatever. You know what I mean? My question is, how do we force these people in positions of power to listen? And then after we speak, you know, we have to just analyze them, you know, like, are they receptive to this idea at all? Is money going to be the issue in terms of administrative costs to getting something like that off the ground? Like, what are the issues? You know, I think Pan-Africans need to lay out the skeleton of what the problems are and start really attacking some hard solutions.
Shout out to James Pope. Everyone, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to James Pope. Let's see here. Ghana should make it easier for the diaspora to come back. Instead, they see us as a money tree and charging us 4 times the price for everything. But David, this is the thing. Even on the ground in Ghana, you know, I've been, you know, hustled here and there, but it's literally like, okay, if something costs, we'll just say in terms $2, they might charge me $4 or $5. In Ghana, man, them Negroes, god damn, and it's just like shit.
You know, my mom always used to say that one of the worst things in the world that happened to us was poverty. And something sad. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say that greed doesn't play a factor into that. But it makes me sad when I see kids drinking the wildest, most polluted, dirty water. And then I look and I say, wow, like they messed everything up. You know, we partly messed some of it up, but we got given a messed up situation. Now we're poor, and now we're so poor, we're even now so morally bankrupt that we would even charge returnees to visit their own sites the same. Like, unfortunately, it's anti-Black thinking as well. Africans are some of the most anti-Black thinkers, not all Africans actually, and I'll address that actually just after. I just did a little Freudian slip there, but you get anti-African nature. So I can imagine that a lot of Africans on the continent believe a lot of nonsense and are just looking for a money ticket. But to take it to the other flip side of the ADOS discussion, right? My greatest fear has been in how quickly this has divulged into some of the wildest anti-African talk I've seen online.
Okay.
I was shocked.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think non-ADOS are so threatened? But and then also going to the anti-African talk. I just feel like it's just now these people are just like been like threatened about it.
I think for some people it's political positioning. So, for example, some people speak about you know, Kamala Harris or Angela Rye and all that type of stuff. I think they've benefited in America through being a part of one big Black community without distinction. Now, when we're putting distinctions on things, if you're somebody who stands to lose in that situation, I can see how these people are now starting to get a little bit jumpy in that. But in a way, something which I do take a lot of sympathy for with my African brothers and sisters who are first generation over there is that it could be it can be quite a shock, because Americans, in my opinion, Americans don't know how friendly they are. Americans don't realize how, for blacks, when we come from Africa and you come to America, like, you've won the global lottery. I mean, it's like God has answered your prayers, and you get there and black people have made something which people in Africa hate, which is even blackness. Look at the bleaching in Nigeria. Look at the bleaching on the continent. We still aren't comfortable with our skin.
Right. And
black Americans have taken that and in their culture created such swag and such coolness about it, right? And
right.
You, as an African immigrant, I could imagine you just think, I need to be like that. I want to be just like that. I want to fit in. And for some Africans, they get a bit of resistance. A lot of my African American friends don't realize how bad the African booty scratcher phase was for some, not for all. And it's not the same, for example, as, you know, any of the hardships that, you know, we go to on a day-to-day, but it does make a difference. And I think that a lot of black Africans in America are starting to get a little bit scared that they're going to lose their place in the black community. I think that's a very, very serious fear for them, because with someone like Trump in office at the same time, for example, if you're a Ghanaian first gen in America, you're watching your president try and deport 7,000 of your people. And if you've been on certain waves and certain conscious thinking, you're seeing people who you may have subscribed to online, people you may have donated money to for their movies or events or whatever, say things which you're like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, wait, like, and I think a little bit of the defensiveness is them trying to say, like, wait, I'm your friend. I'm with you. But I think it also is going to take tough talks and very strong conversations. But I think you're putting the conversations together in a way that African people can actually have, especially Africans living in America, UK, etc. Whereas other commentators, unfortunately, are saying some very, very anti-African stuff. Like, I won't accept, as an African person, you and I have been chatting. I support you lot, but nobody on earth is gonna call my people leeches and think that I'm gonna smile. No, I think that sometimes people need to remember Africans hold that citizenship close because it's the only thing they have. But African pride is the only thing that you have as an African living outside of that country. All you have is your pride. Because here in the UK, for example, when we have the migrant crisis happening from Africa, where you've got people that are dying off the sides of boats in the Mediterranean and stuff like that, and you see British columnists refer to them as cockroaches, you understand how the world can sometimes look at you as less than a human. And black Americans, some black American conscious writers and leaders throughout the whole past have been some of the best people to write about that feeling, that experience. But Africans are also experiencing it as well. And I feel that sometimes people just need to remember, like, yo, are you really going to look my man in the face, call his people leeches, and then expect him to smile? Like, any man or woman with some pride is definitely going to feel some type of way about how some of the comments and some of the discussion can go. I think it can be both progressive, constructive, and respectful. That's my thing.
Shout out to Chima Madu as well. He says African elites will not accommodate for Africans in the diaspora, but they will accommodate enormously for Europeans, Chinese, Indians, and Arabs. What do you think?
I agree. They should not be opening the door for, you know, Chinese, Lebanese, Indian, whatever, all these other peoples to come in, because we know that these things don't usually work out well. And we know that we don't usually start from a position of power to have these negotiations properly with these people when they come into the continent. The only thing I can think of that would potentially have maybe helped it become a case of African Americans getting all of the land and resources, and that would have been maybe if in like the past, I don't know, like let's take Ghana for example.
Right.
If there were maybe, unfortunately, if there were a few rich African Americans that were buying, you know, a solid bit of land, and then maybe they got up to a hectare or something. In some ways, some Ghanaian officials might say, hey, look, here's the proof that our brothers and sisters are coming. But at the same time, I don't think that that also means that African Americans have to buy land before they can return home. I feel like in terms of buying the land, I personally just wish I wish there was one group of rich black people in America that just said, hell, we're going to buy up all this land in Africa. And then in a way, I wish that kind of started a trend that could have been running alongside.
Well, in Ghana, they have this project called Garvey Town that they're working on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hold on. I'll read it to you. Let me get your thoughts on this. I just wonder how, you know, how this is going to be, let's see, Garvey Town, Ghana. Hold on one second. Let me read this to you. Here we go. Overview of Garvey Town community are you familiar with a city called Gomoa, Ghana?
I've heard of the name before, yeah.
Okay.
They're going to build a Garvey Town in Gomoa.
Yeah, in Gomoa. So here we go. Garvey Town is a 300-acre proposed community in Gomoa, Esukwa, in the central region of Ghana, about 2 miles off the Accra-Winneba Road. It's in the middle of Cape Coast and Accra, but about 1.5 to 2 hours away from either city. At the heart of Garvey Town is a group of committed Pan-Africans who wish to create a living shrine as memorial to those who lost their lives and to those who survived the Mafa. So my question is, like, I wonder who, and you know what, before I start, I reached out to the people over it. I'm just waiting for them to hear back, but I just wonder who owns the 300 acres.
That's what I want to know. Like, I like who's the brand? Because it sounds great in my mind. It sounds great, but who's like leading that movement? I've never heard of it.
Let me see here. Damn, 1 second. Let me go back to it. Let's see here. Yeah. But so, you know, yeah, but that's my thing. I wonder who actually owns the whole 300 acres of land.
Exactly. Now, in my mind, if it's called Garvey Town, in my mind, I do tend to think like, okay, that's got to be that should
Pan-Africans, but you know, it could.
Yeah, it's not to say like, you know, they could also, you know, we don't know
with somebody or.
Yeah. But the idea, I've heard of it as well I think it was in Zimbabwe or Zambia. They said they set aside like 5,000 hectares to create a Wakanda type thing. And projects like that, they're great, but they don't mean anything if you, the African Americans, the Jamaicans, the Bahamians, and all of the descendants of slaves can't come back to Garvey Town because of red tape and visas. It's like, stop trying to put the cart before the horse. Let our brothers and sisters have an easy way in, and let's do this as well. You know, it sounds great, but it ultimately won't add up to much if we don't have a tangible law in place that at least recognizes you guys as Africans and recognizes that you at least have a right to be citizens in these countries.
See what else we got here in the chat room. Because the thing is, like, okay, so you buy the land, you move to Garvey Town, then you still got to go through the whole long process of being even considered Ghanaian. That's just my problem. That's
exactly. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If you can't easily relocate to Ghana, or even something as basic as doesn't need a visa to fly for a holiday, you know what I mean, or whatever arrangements, it's not going to really mean much for us to build this great Pan-African shrine without any Pan-African legislation behind it.
Guys, let's get the likes up. We have 460 people watching, only 157 likes. Let's hit that like button. Pan-Africanism is about embracing an African identity. American DOS is about establishing, embracing an American identity. Two accountable ideologies. What are your thoughts on that? I disagree.
I disagree as well, because if Pan-Africanism is embracing African identity, then why would African people who are the descendants of the Ma'afa in the United States want to disregard the biggest thing that's happened to Africa, to any group of people on Earth.
In history.
In history, ever. No other people were written up as property. No other people built the world's biggest superpower like African Americans did. I don't see why it would particularly. I don't get why you would give that away. Like no one would want you to, in my opinion. I don't get why. But this whole thing about ADOS being an American idea, no, it's not, because again, it's about you guys. If you guys, like, I'm not going to say you're not African, but I can't also say you're not Americans. And I don't get why you guys can't have both. Why not? You suffered enough for it. Of course you should. It's your right. And if anything as well, it's like it's surely, there's surely got to be a better line of thinking than thinking that you can either be ADOS or Pan-African, because I just don't see them as mutually exclusive. I think they can be linked. I think they can be both.
Let's see here. As a Congolese, I would welcome African Americans anytime to Congo rather than. In fact, let me ask you this. Okay, so he says, as a Congolese, I would welcome African Americans anytime to Congo rather than the Chinese and the Indians and the Arabs who are getting rich off my country. African Americans have so much to give. David, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I hear some Africans who swear that even now, this ADOS movement, that Black Americans are the biggest threat to African sovereignty if we go over there. Like, it's just the weirdest thing ever. Like,
I can't explain that, because like I said, Africans need to stop lying to themselves. We know that if we have a wedding in our family or something and the whole family gets together, you know how Black people get when you get the whole family together. You know, everyone start talking and exposing and chatting and all of that. Like, Africans I'm like, oh, so African Americans are the dangerous ones? Like,
yeah, I'm just like, how? Like, listen, David, listen, you don't understand. Listen, I get people, I got an email from Kenya the other day.
Yeah.
African asking me if I was CIA. And I'm just like, huh? But then what's crazy now, are you keeping up with what's going on in Haiti?
Yeah, there's a protest recently, in it.
Right. So, but listen, to even add to that, there were white mercenaries on the ground and they just got arrested. So my thing is, every white person that comes through Jomo Kenyatta Airport, whatever it's called, do you ask them if they're CIA?
That's exactly my problem, which is, hey,
you know, and the amount of white zaddy ass kissing I see.
But
you don't ask me if I'm CIA just because I go to Africa a lot. Am I CIA? But you wouldn't as white zaddy if you CIA.
That gets on my last nerve. The whole, like, you will throw yourself at any white man that comes to Africa, but then you want to question Black Americans. Like, one thing actually that Africans point out a little bit with China now, and point out a little bit with white people, is when these white men come from other places and these Chinese men come from other places, these people will start doing all types of stuff with children.
Oh, illegal mining. I mean, not just the children, just the everything.
They robbed us for like 600 years. They're molesting kids, but you guys are the thing? No. Gang culture is not going to be exported from America.
Here we go. Let me stop you right there. So another disclaimer was, make sure you Black Americans don't bring Bloods and Crips to Africa.
Oh, that's some dumb shit. That's the dumbest I've ever heard. So they really think then that African Americans are gonna get on the boat?
Yeah. Start set in the middle of Accra, gang Bloods. Exactly.
Nah.
No, the majority of Bloods and Crips either can't get a passport because they have felonies, or can't or have no interest in coming to Africa.
I would love to question people and really ask, do you genuinely think a gang member is gonna book his tickets, pay his immigration, get his visa together, come to Africa to start gangbanging over what? Omo, we have nothing. What?
Yeah, gangbanging over what?
Exactly. But as for the one thing actually about the CIA comment, which again I think it's ridiculous, But the only thing I think that is worthy of discussion is that the fear of people coming into Africa under the guise of being, hey, I'm your friendly, you know, I'm your friendly African American, and then they're secretly working for the government. I think that, unfortunately, we as Africans, I think we have to be very bold in this one and just say flat out, that's not really likely to be the case. I don't think it is the case. And quite frankly, we've allowed everybody else come in anyway. So it's a bit late now.
Mm-hmm.
If the CIA wants somebody in Africa, they're not going to use you. They're going to use the white people that they've got walking around Africa. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be afraid of Black Americans to come and be spies or to bring something negative, because we've experienced every possible negative that we could possibly have. CIA have changed governments. You know, we've had famines. We've had, you know, Muslims from the Middle East come over and export terrorism to the continent. But we don't question Lebanese people. We don't question.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? And they've actually, you know, Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram, all this shit. Like, it's like, well, who has a proven track record of hurting us? Everybody else. Who has a proven track record of not always being 100%? I don't think anybody's perfect, but African Americans have never done Africa any damage. And I would love to see how they have, if someone is going to make that argument. But what have African Americans done to damage Africa? Is my question to Africans who want to act like that.
Right. Who's are you familiar with Sheck West?
Oh, Sheck West, yeah.
Yeah, who is that? How do you feel about him?
He's I haven't heard the song yet. He did that Mo Bamba song. Apparently, it's the stuff. Did he get into some trouble over allegedly punching the girlfriend?
I don't know who he is.
Yeah, he's a rapper. I think he's from New York.
Oh, is he from? Oh, you know what? He's Senegalese.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. I don't know who he is. I never heard his music, but he's Senegalese, and actually, his dad used to be a tailor for Dapper Dan. So yeah, but I don't know anything. Like, I've never heard any of his music.
Nah, apparently, you know, a lot of my friends actually say that he's a new up and comer and that, you know, his music's quite good. I was cool with that, and then I saw, unfortunately, that they questioning him over the hitting the girlfriend allegedly situation thing there. So I don't know if he did it, and if he didn't do it, I don't know if he's going to survive it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because something in the UK, which in particular is quite hot at the moment, is deportations. And if he is Senegalese, and if there's a loophole in the US law, I would hate to see him going, like, I hate to see them try and do something with him because he's going through something. Because I don't want to see nobody get deported at all, but I hope he lands on his feet with that. But
hey, what are they saying? What's Black UK saying about 21 Savage?
Oh my
boy!
Oh snap! Before I forget, I want to make sure that you got this live in first, right? The birth certificate that showed where he's from showed that he's from a borough called Newham. Now, let me tell you something, I am not surprised in the slightest that he's from Newham. That place is wild, bro.
Is it really?
Like, I would say this. If you spent about 20 minutes in Newham, I think you would understand that this is where Savage is from. I think a lot of people in the UK, to be honest with you, if he does get deported, he's going to be welcomed a lot more than I think he even thinks. Like, a lot of people are cool with it. Nobody knew he was from the UK. Like, it was the biggest shock to us. I was like, the hell do you mean? Like, I was actually chilling with one of my friends. Actually, he was a white guy too. And he was just sat there. He was like, oh, I've just got the new 21 Savage is going to get deported. I was like, oh, where's he from? And I was thinking they were going to say like Jamaica or maybe Canada or something. They were like, oh no, he's from UK. And I remember I turned around, I was like, what, UK as in here? And he was just like, yeah. And I was like, no, what, as in Britain? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh snap, I didn't know. I hope that he doesn't get deported just because he's lived there for ages. He's becoming a better person.
Yeah, but Dave, listen, he can't. This is my thing. Like, why immigrate from a country and come here and and sell dope, trap?
Yeah,
You
that's
know, it's just like it's
my thing is this as well, which is it's unfortunate that he has gone and taken that path in life and that now he's becoming better because ultimately, deportations wise, when I heard he was British and I re-looked up his record and saw that he went to jail, I was like, oh shit, they're getting rid of him for sure. There ain't no chance in hell that he's surviving, not with his charges. And for me, that's irresponsible as hell because he should have known better, unfortunately, with regards to crime. I think I look at him and I see that he is definitely, unfortunately, you know, he's clearly grown up in a very tough environment. I mean, actually, I don't even know what type of environment.
Well, let me ask you this: did he come from money in UK? Like
That's another thing which is a bit weird. Some people are saying his dad's a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know how rich a doctor, but what I can say for sure is this: he's not come from a rich place in London. I'll say that. He's not come from a rich place in London at all. He's come from essentially the Bronx.
Okay, let me ask you this because
for me, it's like he comes from Newham. So I'm inclined to think that he's coming from the hood and come from tough situations. But I've also heard people say that his family is involved with money and things like that. So if his family were involved with money and he's done this, then he's a fucking moron.
And so okay, somebody says Southwark is worse than Newham.
No, actually, wait. Nah. I'll still take my day in Southwark over Newham. Like it might just be my personal experience, but Newham was bad. I got some friends from there as well, and it's one of the tougher places in London to grow up in. You know.
So is it like by okay? So it's a I guess a neighborhood actually in London.
Yeah, it's in East London.
Okay, like see, this is the thing. When I think like bad and gang violence here in America, it's like drive-by shootings, you know, crack. I mean, so is Newham like that? Like, is it just the hood? Like,
oh yeah, a lot of that, a lot of it. Like Newham is. I'd say you got places in every region of London that are bad. In North London, you know, you have places like Tottenham and Edmonton and Hornsey. Like
somebody says tough as Brixton. I heard of Brixton. I heard Brixton was tough.
Yeah, Newham is it. Let's put it like this: a group of boys from Brixton cannot go to Newham and then just go do what they want. It will wind up. It will probably wind up bad.
Okay.
Newham is up there, that level. Like there's a lot of stabbings. Shootings are less common because there's less guns, but they do still happen. And teen pregnancy, drug abuse. You know, we've got more kids this year, you know, unfortunately, that are dying from the knife crime and all of that type of stuff. Obviously, the media is going to make it worse when it's black people doing it than when other cities like Glasgow are very violent and predominantly white. But Newham is a bad place. I wouldn't let my American tourist family members walk around Newham by themselves if I could avoid it.
Oh wow!
And if they were gonna go walking around there, I'd just, you know.
Yeah, because I just don't understand, how do you leave the ghetto and migrate to the ghetto? Like I just don't, like, that defeats the purpose of migrating or immigrating.
Get it? And that's a point that makes me question how much money he had and where he grew up. You know what I mean? Like, would you really move from the hood to go to the hood? But at the same time, in the UK, it's very expensive. If I was to, and I know a lot of people that move to America, and then they may not live in a very, very nice neighborhood, but they have a big house and they have certain things which just come with being in America bigger, you know, like a driveway, a garage, and all that type of stuff. Could it have been one of those situations? Maybe, but at the same time, I don't know what it's like where he grew up. I don't know.
Nah, it's because I live in Atlanta. Where he grew up is the whew. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you leave the hood and immigrate to the hood? Like across the, you know, it's just like where he grew up. It's rough. It's rough. Put it like this. Atlanta is starting to gentrify. Like his area where he's at is still not gentrifying yet. Yeah.
Gentrifiers ain't trying to go down there.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, it's rough where he's at.
I mean, wow. I don't know. I want to know his story. I think he owes us a documentary when he's finished, whether he's finished and he survives and he stays in the US or he comes back to the UK, because I think he's left a big like question, like how does this happen? Because if he doesn't answer this question, it lends itself to the people who are calling him fake. But at the same time, you're from the same city, and you know that he grew up in a place that
yeah, dog. Like where he grew up is yeah, it's the track.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Hey, as an American, are you aware of a UK MC called Akala?
Who?
Akala.
Yeah, I know Akala. In fact, I've actually chatted with Akala on Twitter a couple, like, you know, yeah.
I was gonna say, as a Black American, have you heard his Fire in the Booth Part 1?
I haven't heard any of it. No, this is the thing. I've never heard any of Akala's music. I just heard his activism.
He's a stand-up guy. I mean, for me, he's a personal, like, you know, obviously, like I love him and all that. But I've always wondered what an African American would think of his song. It's called Fire in the Booth Part 1. The Fire in the Booth, they're just a set of freestyles that artists would do at a particular BBC One Extra radio station. Mm-hmm. But his one, I'm not even going to ruin it. I'll say this, though, right? It's like 8 minutes long, but I still hold it up as, in my opinion, one of the top 5 rap songs for Pan-Africanists, for Black people, for skill ever made. And I honestly will take that to the bank. I'll take it up against your best Wu-Tang, your best Nas. You know, I think that it was really, for me personally, that song was part of the reason why I kept studying and looking in towards Pan-Africanism. Because in that track, he essentially lays out everything that we've discussed, you know, in a track that's really kind of like, it was breathtaking. I would highly recommend. Highly recommend. But you know, if you do, then let me know your opinion, because I'd love to hear what like an African American opinion on that track would be. His activism to it.
From everything I heard, the best thing coming out of the UK is Soul to Soul. Soul to Soul. What's the girl that sang the American Boy song? What's her name?
Oh, Estelle.
Estelle. Whatever happened to her?
That's what I'm thinking, actually. Estelle, she went to New York, and I feel like we never saw or heard from her again. I feel like she's just kind of living in a penthouse somewhere doing something good. Craig David, he's very old school.
I didn't like.
You didn't like Craig David?
I didn't like Craig David.
Oh man, well, you know what? Maybe that's.
I did not like Craig David.
Maybe that's a local.
I didn't like any Craig David songs. I didn't like. Like I said, I like Soul to Soul. I like to do the Mr. What's the song, like Mr. Return to the Mac. I like that.
Mark Morrison.
He's from the UK, right?
Yeah. Him. Who else is sick? Who else is sick music wise? There's obviously, I'm sure you've heard of Stormzy.
Who?
Stormzy.
No.
You never heard of Stormzy?
Mm.
Wow. He's he's pretty much the big dog on things right now. It's like STORMZY. You know, he's pretty big. Something I respect about Stormzy is he recently he also kind of turned a little bit political. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Grenfell Tower tragedy.
Okay. So here we go. Because I heard Akala speaking on that.
Yeah, Stormzy.
How many people really died?
In my opinion, they officially declared something like, at first it was 60, then it was 70, then it was 80. I think it was more like, because it was about 20 floors, and each floor had, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 flats, I think. So I think it's going to be around the maybe 500, 600, 700, maybe. But I also know they're never going to go back and start investigating that.
Oh, I mentioned Floetry. I love Floetry too. Floetry.
Another classic.
I love Floetry.
Another classic. Do you not know J Hus?
No, I don't. See, this is the thing. I don't know the underground hip hop or rappers from the UK. I just know more like the R&B.
Oh, okay. The R&B. Well, the new rappers and the new grime generation and that, the music, I think, has hit a point where there's enough experience in the industry and there's enough musical talent where now before, back when I was in secondary school and that, if you weren't from London or from a very black city, you wouldn't really get grime. Now, I think it's slightly changed. People like Stormzy, Skepta in particular as well, they're doing a lot of big things. So, you know, be sure to check them out. I think Skepta is the one for American people, though, because he speaks quite clearly and he has really, 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 really smart rhymes. So it's quite easy for people to connect. Whereas some people, sometimes they miss a few things because of the accent.
I gotta come and kick. Like, so my goal is London and Paris. I just gotta come kick in and check out the Diaspora there.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just trying to figure out when
Notting Hill Carnival.
When's Carnival?
Notting Hill Carnival is and as a Pan-Africanist, you'll love this. Back in the 60s, there was obviously a hell of a lot of racism towards black people in the UK. And there was like a birthday party where some teenagers were killed. They sent I think like a firebomb through the window of a teenager's house party, and all the kids inside, you know, were killed. It was like a real massive tragedy. The police obviously investigated the victims' parents as if they were suspects. It was really bad. But afterwards, the community, particularly the Caribbean community, organized like a carnival, and it grew to become the Notting Hill Carnival. And it's Europe's biggest street carnival. It happens in August, and I think in total over the weekend, it's like a 3-day weekend. I think it's like 2 or 3 million people go, and it's out on the street, like literally in Notting Hill in London. I would say if you go on Google and have a look at like the pictures, you're gonna see nothing but all of those traditional Caribbean like carnival, big dresses, like all that shit. But if you're a black person and you want to meet the black diaspora in London, you come to Carnival.
Okay, so my name and Jay said is Notting Hill Carnival is no longer our cultural thing. So did it get hijacked?
No, it didn't get hijacked, but it's being encroached on. I'll say this, and we've had this discussion. One, the Caribbean community have remained very strong. Well, some members of the Caribbean community have remained very strong about Carnival should be a Caribbean-based thing. Just the same way as ADOS want their movement to be about them. Right. Caribbean people want Carnival to be about Caribbean people. The problem is, though, is that throughout time, the police have always been very difficult with Carnival. They've always made huge arrests. They've always said, like, oh, it's full of drugs and blah, 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 all of that type of stuff. So, unfortunately, I feel like to be cool with the commercial side of things, they've allowed, like, house music on, like, one corner for, like, a little bit of the day, and some people are able to buy into things that aren't from the community or have the community's best wishes at heart. And with the gentrification of London that's going on as well, you're starting to see a lot more people. Like 10 years ago, it would have been very much more black. Now, you know, you're starting to get all of these hipsters that come into Carnival as well. And it's starting to, I'm not going to say it's been taken from us yet, but I can definitely say that there's been things which we've already had the discussions about amongst ourselves as the black community in London, which is like, how do we keep Carnival what it's intended for? And how do we keep it Caribbean? Because that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's been taken yet, but it's dangerously heading in that direction over the next few years.
Yeah, I definitely got to get, like I said, I got to get to the UK and I got to get to Paris. Like I heard, you know.
Be careful with Paris. I've been there, and Paris is great. It's expensive, and the people are. Some people were very, very, very fucking rude. I'll say.
Rude? Yeah, see, I think there's like a city where like pretty much the whole like African diaspora, they're like, like I would go, like I would spend like maybe a day or two in Paris and go to that city, you know.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of black people in Marseille. I think there's a lot of black people in Marseille. It's like Marseille or Lyon or something. I'm not sure. But France is weird like that. France got loads. They got loads of black people out there. A lot of Haitians as well, and things like that. So I'm sure definitely if you're looking to find the diaspora, France and London, I think it'd be your best bet. If you're not gonna go London, I'd recommend Birmingham in London. Birmingham in the UK. Birmingham is about 1.5 hour train from London, but it's about a population of about 1.5 million. But it's very dominated by Asians and a very strong contingent of black people as well as white people as well. But the further north you get, the more kind of friendly they say they get. So it'd be good vibes.
Yeah, people notice you from the grapevine. Hey, shout out your social media.
Oh man, wicked. Man. Hey, first off, I didn't even realize anybody would remember that. Like,
yeah, a couple people notice you.
Big up. Shout out to everyone. My Instagram is at Breath of Fresh Air 29. Please feel free, come on down, leave a comment, argue with me. You know what I mean? Tell me I'm full of shit.
Breath is B-R-E-A-T-H, right? Or is it B-R-E-A-T-H-E?
B-R-E-A-T-H.
Okay, Breath of Fresh Air. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Please be sure to check out. Please be sure to check out the Grapevine. Be sure to check out the episodes we have up regarding Grenfell Tower, the Windrush crisis that was going on as well. And for those out there that do want to know, it is still going on. Something the UK is hiding very well is people from the Caribbean who came here in the 40s. They were invited here. They are now in their 70s, their 80s. A lot of their children, when they came in the 50s as well, are being deported, and it's turning into a massive thing for us. You know, check out all of those episodes. You know, absorb the info, and please do visit London during Carnival, but come correct. You know what I mean? Do not think that it's, you know, just a walkthrough. Show love, and love will be shown for sure. Please do.
My bad. I was forgetting to add the 29 on your
social
media. Let me retype that again.
No, absolutely.
Now, last question. What's going on with the windfall? It's called Windfall.
Oh, the Windrush?
Yeah, Windrush. I'm sorry. What's going on?
Essentially, that's the sad thing. Absolutely nothing is changing. You had people like Member of Parliament, Diane Abbott, and all of these people coming out, making a lot of good speeches in Parliament, but the new secretary or whatever, all these lot, like nothing has changed whatsoever. Elderly people that showed up to the UK back in the late 40s, they were invited there from the British government. Because let's take Jamaica, for example, as a case study, right? Jamaica didn't get independence until like something like 1962 or like 1963, sometime around that, right? Before that point, Jamaica had been ran and governed by England since 1655. The people that came in the Windrush generation, we're talking about the great-grandchildren and the grandchildren of Jamaica's last slaves. Let alone the fact that this is something Britain don't ever want to tell you as well. When they ended slavery, they gave reparations to the slave masters.
Oh, but I was here in America, too.
Oh, what? They gave them reparations to in America?
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah.
Oh, what? I thought after the Civil War, like, you know.
No. They gave, even after the Civil War, they gave reparations to Black America. I mean, I'm not black. Hell no. To the slave masters. Then they had the $5 Indian situation where
I heard about that.
They were pay $5 to become part of the Indian tribe and get land, and then they were giving all these land grants and stuff to
like
when they started to settle the West.
Yeah, all that Manifest Destiny and Marshall, like all that stuff that helped all them Europeans that were coming from Europe, help them go out west and do what they do. Yeah, but yeah. The UK and the Windrush situation is disgusting because it's really shown a lot of black people here that, quite frankly, in my opinion, the UK government has said it quite clear. We don't give a damn if you're elderly. We don't give a damn if you were veterans from World War II. We don't care that when you came here, they spray painted on the doors, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. We don't care that they were killing black people like with no punishment for ages. There were riots in the 60s. There were the Nottingham riots, the Brixton riots, the Liverpool race riots. We had all of that going, and now those same people in their elderly dying days are being deported. And it reminds me of when Obama, didn't he sign something for the Jewish people who survived the Holocaust?
Oh, of course, yeah. So they get they get reparations. And so here's the argument. white people who are against reparations, they say since the people who were slaves passed away and we weren't there, we shouldn't get reparations. But how it's working for the Jews from the Holocaust, they're
exactly.
they're
in a whole different country. And not only that, but America went as an ally to liberate a lot of these people who were in those conditions. It's not like America was in the position of Italy that was an ally to the Nazis and helping the Nazis commit genocide against the Jews. America backed it. And they still can pay reparations to them, even though they didn't commit the crime to it. So why can't they give reparations to black people? Not only that, but who says reparations has to stop with slavery? Last time I checked, wasn't there like civil rights struggles until like damn near the 70s? What about that?
Still to today. Still
exactly. So in my mind, when white people say that, because they'll say the same thing to us over here about like when the Caribbeans get together and say they want reparations as well. Say, oh, well, my family wasn't involved. Yeah, well, your family benefits. Your family benefits today. Your family benefited back then. The very fact that we have lights and we don't have regular blackouts in this country is partly because we stole everything. I always remind people, we got Britain here with all this engineering and building all this stuff. Where does all of these resources come from? We don't have nothing here. So for me, it's like, no, save your excuses. If it was put in a tax that you didn't have to look at every day, and even if you did, it should just be an automatic tax. And I do agree that African Americans deserve at least to begin the discussions about reparations and being considered a protected class, just like Native Americans. I don't understand why Native Americans have Indian reserves where they have their own police and they have their own laws and they have their own way of doing shit. But at the same time, you won't do that for black people. Why?
All right. Listen, so a couple questions just to close out.
Yeah,
number
sure.
one, are you familiar with Speaker's Corner?
Yeah. It's a place in central London. There's Hyde Park. Hyde Park is kind of like the Central Park, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah. And Speaker's Corner has always been a place where people go with like a soapbox and go and like talk about their political opinion or what have you. A lot like the street preachers and that type of stuff. You know, like how the Hebrew Israelites and stuff like that.
Is this like the Nation of Islam brother that's in the
UK? Yeah. He goes there. Leo Muhammad. Yeah.
Leo Muhammad.
Yeah. They be politicking out on Speaker's Corner, but you got to come correct because they'll come for your head if you go there. But you know it's a good place, and Content Over Everything is a channel on YouTube where they put a lot of people out there that just debate a lot, and you get to actually quite see a lot of what people are thinking. I think if you go Hyde Park Corner, so you go Speaker's Corner, and you stand there for a day, unfortunately, you're going to start to understand how other people look at us as a group. Because in these debates, people feel very free to express themselves, which is good. But hey, they also feel free to expose themselves, which is, good or bad.
And then let's see. Shout out to Blue Waffle for the super chat. Dave, what do you think some constructive things about ADOS, and what do Africans say about African Americans when they are not around? Ooh,
this is interesting.
And after this, I got one more question for you. I'm gonna let you go.
For sure. Africans, I actually asked my mom, my dad, my cousin. I've asked every African in my family about this, and I've always said, why is it that Africans have words like akata and stuff like that? And me personally, I hate that word. To me, it's like looking at a poor person try and call another person poor. It's like, so you want to call them akata, but we don't have things running in Africa. Shut up. A lot of people tell me though that Africans in Africa, they might be quite ignorant, which you clearly have seen and experienced whilst you've been on the continent in some places. They can be quite ignorant to, in my opinion, Black Americans' feelings. Not just like as an emotional, my feelings, but sometimes I think Africans back home don't put themselves fully into the shoes of our brothers and sisters from around the world. But when I asked one family member, and she said, in Africa, they don't hate African Americans.
They love us over there.
Oh, yeah, they said no. She was like, they love African Americans. They love all of our brothers and that. They said, and our sisters and that. They even said that someone they knew was an African and they were marrying an African-American woman. And I even heard somebody recently try and say that Africans particularly disrespect African-American women, which is a lie. Because I remember they all kind of was...
Yeah, that's a lie.
They was all joking and saying like, yo, like, you're going to marry one of the sisters. But they held that as like such a standard. And it's not to say that they were putting African-American women above, you know, African women or anything like that. But it seemed like, oh, you're going to marry like, oh, like they're going to be, you know, beautiful. They're going to assume that you're light-skinned, you know, assume that you have great hair and style, all that stuff, which, you know, we spoke on earlier in that. So unfortunately, the disrespect, in my opinion, comes in when Africans show up in these areas. And then they suddenly start getting comfortable to start saying and doing reckless stuff. And you can't show up in another Black environment around the world and then start disrespecting the Black people there. That gets on my nerves. I don't get why it exists. Obviously, a lot of Africans don't feel that they are the same as African Americans for whatever reason. And a lot of African Americans feel the same likewise. A lot of Africans suffer from not knowing our history. I'm sure yourself or myself probably have more books in our house about Black power than a lot of the universities.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So unfortunately, if you look at America and you say, okay, we've got coons in America, we've got African-American coons. Why are a lot of them coons? Some of them because they don't know the truth.
Right.
And some of them, you know, because they want to.
Right.
But let's think bigger. What would happen if that was an entire country? And then what would happen if that was an entire continent? Just like that. Obviously, it's not exactly the same. But what I'm saying is I think a lot of Africans suffer from a lot of ignorance, of not knowing proper and true history. Not just of African Americans, of what they've been through and what they've done, but of themselves.
And the last question now, a lot of people, they like you on the grapevine, but they don't like the grapevine. They say it's pro and, you know, like the Root, where it's just a bunch of names. Are you familiar with the Root here in America? Yeah, they say it's like the Root, where there's a bunch of white zaddy, we love white zaddy, feminism, and yeah. Is that true? Is that true?
What I'll say is this. One thing I respected about going on the grapevine was that they were the first and only platform that's ever responded to me to give me a chance to speak and to come.
Let me stop you right there, brother. You are always more than welcome to come on this platform as well.
My brother, thank you. I definitely would hope to, and you know, hopefully there's some flourishes. That's something for me that the grapevine did that I will always have to give them props for. Something else I liked but did notice is that there are a lot of different political opinions in that room, and a lot of them would definitely, you know, a lot of them are different from me. I respect the differences, and I think that what's healthy about the grapevine, at least with regards to the UK episodes and a lot of the episodes I've seen, is that they have done a good job at putting together a lot of different opinions. Definitely, I'm not going to say any single media source is without their feelings, without their intentions, without their bias and that. And obviously, I know, you know, the background, all that type of stuff as well. But for me, I can't speak ill of that so far. They actually did a live event back in October, and I definitely did notice, you know, sure, there's a lot of people that hold a lot of certain types of political opinions in there, but I was just happy to be the bit of diversity in the thinking in the room in that regard. And well, I hope that the episodes, and as they come in the future, as they keep going around the world, I hope the episodes are able to keep giving us all voices and to keep giving dialogue. One thing I massively believe, and I'll end it on this, is that we do not have to agree. We have to respect each other. We have to respect each other, and I don't think that that's even a question. But we don't all have to agree to be this whole one big kumbaya nigga family. It's not going to work like that. And I think that the best thing we can do at the start now is to get as many opinions out there, sure. But I also think that we can put a million opinions out there, but the real opinions will always rise to the top. And I think that that's what our conversation has also shown, which is that yeah, we can throw a whole bunch of stuff out there in the world, but when it really boils down to it, realness will always reveal itself. And fakeness, in my opinion, I don't think that in the coming years that the fake weak shit is gonna work no more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that people are gonna have to really face up. And well, you know, if for those on the grapevine, some of them have some struggles. There's definitely people I agree with, don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually somebody on there from the UK episodes that it turned into a thing, and then she wrote, you know, like there was like an article with the BBC, and she was talking about her white husband or something like that. That type of stuff.
Is this girl? Was this a Nigerian girl?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I read. Okay, I think I saw that.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. And again, I don't agree with how she thinks about certain things. I don't agree with that at all. And I'd love to sit down and disagree with her on that publicly. But at the same time, I can only respect that you got to put everybody in the room. And in the UK, we need more of these conversations. The US has a lot of these platforms now that are talking and has always had a better history of organizing and speaking about Black issues. The UK is a touch more quiet. So for us, in regards to, you know, the grapevine, they provided us to start having discussions and looking at things, which has been quite helpful. So yeah, I can fuck with the show. I can fuck with the show. I can understand though, and I respect anybody's decision to agree or disagree, you know, with the show or anything like that. But I fuck with the show. I'm cool with it.
Brother Dave, thank you for coming on, guys. Before we close out, I put a link in the chat room. In fact, this brother, he's actually in the UK, so he sent me a couple bags. He told me to help him out, and I mean these bags. So when I travel, I'm gonna be. He's in the UK. His name is Tomlini. He's a brother.
You know, send me the link to this guy, bro.
Yeah, Tomlini.com. So you know, guys, if you're this is the pure snakeskin. Okay, so if you guys are into, in fact, I bought one of the bags. Then he was like, he found out who I was, and he was like, okay, let me send you one to help me out. So I'm all about helping out. You know, I know we had the situation with Gucci and now Burberry. So people who are into luxury line, instead of getting you a Louis Vuitton carry-all, if you're into luxury, this brother is a black guy, Tomlini.com, has his own bags, black owned, pure snakeskin. So he sent one of the ones I bought, and then and then I got this one, and he sent me this one, all snakeskin.
Yeah, that's nice, bro.
And he's out of the UK, brother from the UK.
Ah, that's hard. I want to share that with more people. Make sure we get that out there, because that's nice. And what you said is true. It's one thing that we always talk about protesting these people. Like, we have to come up with the replacement. I'm tired of seeing people say, let's not do this. Don't say that. Say, let's not do this, and let's use this instead. And I can respect that. We need to get away from the Gucci's and the Burberrys. They don't respect us, and we know that.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, if you're into luxury, you know, again, it's not, you know, it costs a little bit of a penny. He hooked me up on the first one. Then the second one, you know, he's like, look, Dinah, you know, I enjoy what you're doing. You know, I've been following you for a minute. So, you know, I'm going to send you one. So, guys, here you go. And he had, go to his website, tomlini.com. The link is in the chat room, TOMLINI.com. You know, if you're in the market for a Louis Vuitton keep-all or Gucci keep-all, brother, this brother has the flyest bags I've ever seen. It's pure snakeskin, sheep, leather in the inside. Absolutely beautiful. So, yeah. So here you guys go. In fact, guys, which one do you guys like? The brown one or this one? I don't know what color to call this, but the brown one or this one? Which one do you guys?
I like the brown one.
Like the brown one?
Yeah, I like the brown one. That's
well, like I said, just guys, reach out to him. Say Dynast sent you. Dynast Amir, search for Uhuru, and he'll work with you. You know, so yeah. So, anyways,
support Black business, everybody, and that's international. Everybody.
Yeah, and the brother, like I said, the brothers in the UK. The brothers in the UK. So yeah. So man, thank you for joining us. So everyone. Anytime you want to come on, just hit me up. So everyone, make sure you go to search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Make sure you like and subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Tomlini, tomlini.com. It's in, let me, TOMLINI.com. There you go.
Nice. Thanks for having me, man. Have a great day. And again, you know, keep fighting it, man. Keep fighting a good fight.
All right, no problem. Until next time, family. Peace.
Until next time, man. Peace.